What's the first thing you do with a brand new £111,000 BMW M5 when you reach an abandoned piece of road? Launch control. Obviously. Yeah, new M5's still quite rapid. And that's as it should be, isn't it? Because that's what a BMW M5 is all about. Super saloon thuggery in a relatively subtle body. It's a car with big power, subtle looks and quite a lot of refinement. It's grown-up speed. And that's what we've got here, a very grown-up M5. Not in a very grown-up colour, it has to be said. But the thing here is that this isn't just a big V8 engine chucked into a saloon car. This is a car that's got switchable four-wheel drive, loads of different traction control settings, a plug-in hybrid system and more buttons to push than your average argumentative sibling. So, the basics are that we have a familiar 4.4 litre petrol V8 under the bonnet that makes about 580 brake horsepower and 535 pounds-feet of torque. But then there's an 8-speed Steptronic Auto just behind it that actually has an electric motor inveigled into it. Now that electric motor has just under 200 brake horsepower and just over 200 pounds-feet of torque, but it also has a gear in it, so it makes 332 pounds-feet. Still with me? Yes, it does require some thought. Total system output? 727 brake horsepower and 737 pounds-feet of torque. That means this is a full 5-seat saloon that gets from 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds and runs on to a limited 155 miles an hour. Unless, of course, you order the M Drivers package, which means it'll do 189, also limited, but you have to have an Autobahn commute. But it doesn't look too flash or too much. Unless, of course, you order it in yellow.
But does it actually look good? Okay, so it's a bit wider, 75mm at the front wheels and 48mm at the rear compared to a normal 5 Series, but it hasn't got obvious bolted on flares, it's just a bit swollen. There's a deeper front valance with these standard adaptive LED headlights above, stepped side skirts, those wider arches and this M logo embossed into the C-pillar. You can even option a carbon roof, which is 30kg lighter than the panoramic glass option. A little M lip spoiler on the back and 4 staggered exhausts, always a dead giveaway. Big wheels, 20s on the front and 21s on the back, and big brakes. The gold calipers mean carbon ceramics, by the way. But it's still got that M5 modesty, if not the stylishness of older M5s, but that could just be me. One thing you can't unsee is that the rear bumper looks like a pair of pants. But again, that could just be me. Still, it's all quite sober and useful.
And the same goes for the inside, because in here it is all very top spec 5 Series, very plush, very lovely. You get these wonderful specific M5 seats with the little M5 badges, really comfortable, really hold you in on a corner, but are really comfy on a long journey. Got big curved function displays in front of you. They all work really, really well. They're very clear. You've got dual wireless phone charging, cup holders, plenty of places to store things, and this M-specific flat-bottomed wheel. It's interesting that there are lots and lots of options that you can have, but handily BMW does this thing called the Ultimate Pack, which basically takes all of the options and balls them all together, and that costs £19,500, which is the price of a small car where I come from, albeit you do get quite a lot of stuff with all of the carbon bits and the carbon ceramic brakes, so it's actually not bad value. One thing you can do is switch it into EV only mode, and that means that when that electric motor isn't busy making horsepower, it will provide you with about 40 odd miles of electric only range. There's an 18.6 kilowatt hour battery that's somewhere down there under the floor, and that's always handy when you want to potter around getting home late at night. And it's also got a plug, which is 7.4 kilowatt on the front of the car, and that means you can charge it up from a normal home wall box. As you'd expect, you get a whole array of driving assistance systems, including one called Parking Assistant Professional, which means you can control your M5 from a distance of 200 metres with your mobile phone. So you basically get a remote control M5, which is a nice addition to the array of talents, but it's not really something you expect of an M5. For the more traditional stuff, you have to put it into one of the more aggressive modes, like this. Oh yes. this is it. This is the M5 bit. Making progress, as they used to say, sort of trotting down a road at a decent clip. And the car feels fantastic, to be honest. Now, this new M5 has basically the performance version of xDrive, which is all-wheel drive, but it's quite rear biased, and you can actually switch it to just rear-wheel drive. If you hate your rear tyres, that's for skidding about on track if you must. But the one thing I will say about this car is that it does come with so many different settings. There's an active differential in the back of the car and all the switchable bits for the damper controls. So if I press this button here, M mode, you get 3 different settings, which seems quite normal. Road, sport and track. Okay, that's fine. Then if I press M hybrid, you get a different set of settings. You get E-control, which allows you to save your electric only running for when you get to town. Electric, which just puts it in electric mode. And hybrid, which gets you the best MPG depending on what you're doing. Then if you option the M drivers package, you also get 2 extra modes, Dynamic and Dynamic Plus, which are just more extreme versions of the same thing. But then if you go into setup, you can change all of these. There's an enormous amount of things. So you can go from drivetrain in 3 different modes, energy recovery for the brake recuperation, 3 different modes, drive logic, comfort, sport, sport plus, chassis, comfort, sport, sport plus, steering in 2 different things. You can change the M drive from 4-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive sport, which makes it more rear biased, and then 2-wheel drive, which means it's all rear biased. You can even change the way the brake pedal feels. There's comfort for slow stopping in town and sport, which makes it harder for more sporty driving. Even the M sound, the noises it makes, you can change. And I just feel like it gets a bit overwhelming. It's enough to send you entirely batty until you realise that you can actually program your favourites into these 2 buttons on the steering wheel, and then you just hit them. I'd have probably full soft on one and full racy mode on the other, so that I could just pick between the 2 and not have to fiddle with everything. The thing is, it actually works. This car is not a ballerina, but it disguises its weight really well, and it just feels really solid and secure. And there are some really fun things on it. Like if you're going between 19 and 93 miles an hour, it's got this thing called boost. So basically, if you're going between those 2 speeds, if you pull the left-hand paddle for more than a second, it sets all of these setup options into max attack so that you can overtake with, and I quote, great dynamic flair. So here we go, we're going to pull this paddle for more than a second. Yes, it goes into boost, and then it flashes boost in the head-up display, and you can just overtake. Now it does have quite a lot of mid-range, so you need to pull out before you floor it. That's my advice with the new M5.
But saying that, back in the day we used to have a function that did all of that, which was called kickdown, and all you had to do was push the throttle pedal into the carpet.
Wait. The interesting thing is that it doesn't feel unnatural. There's thousands of things going on, loads of processing actions. It's got active rear steering, which changes the angle of the rear wheels by up to 1.5 degrees. So at high speeds it turns the same way as the front wheels, and at low speed it turns the opposite way to give you more manoeuvrability. There's the all-wheel drive, there's the traction control, there's the dampers, but it doesn't feel unnatural. This car feels like a normal, nimble saloon. The steering's brilliant, the body control is really good.
And it really does feel stable and confident with just enough edge to keep you interested. But there's a lot that feels a bit staged. The engine noise is loud inside and yet mostly missing outside, and that's because it's being amplified through the stereo speakers. The pops and bangs from the exhaust are digitally perfect and similar every time. The slightly rubbery upchange from the gearbox in the more aggressive modes coded in to make it feel more aggressive. So there's always a bit of extra digital digging going on with the M5 to make it seem more fun. And there's probably a reason for that, because there's just one thing that we need to address.
Because I need to talk to you about weight, because the M5 has not been operating in a calorie deficit. This car weighs 2,445 kilos, which is nearly half a tonne more than the last M5. To put it in some sort of context, this car weighs 5 kilograms more than a 5-litre BMW X5 xDrive. So that's the big SUV. And it weighs more than the i5 M60, which is the all-electric version. So what's this car been doing? Just chewing down on pies?
Let's delve into the stats a little bit. An M60i5 weighs 2,380 kilograms, has 600-ish bhp and 586 pounds-feet, all-wheel drive, and does 0 to 62 miles an hour in 3.8 with a top speed of 143 miles an hour. Oh, and up to 320 miles of range. If your petrol engine hybrid super saloon starts to weigh more than your battery electric car, which could easily make more power, then it starts to lose its sharp point. You can make the electronics fake the dynamicism, but you'll always get that nagging feeling of mass halfway round a corner. It's masked, but you know. Weirdly, I'm not so bothered about the acceleration and the top speed numbers these days. I'd be more interested in a low volume production M5 with just a petrol engine that weighed much less, but offered more connection. A sort of CSL M5. I realise that's not always possible with regulation, but this M5 has, for me, kinda lost what it means to be an M5. It's just a really powerful and very adept 5 Series, like a top spec variant rather than a pure M5 identity. It's brilliant, but it's kind of lost its edgy charm.
And then you start to wonder, what exactly are you offering with the new M5? I mean, is it just engine noise? But the remarkable thing here is, this car doesn't feel half as fat as it actually is. To be fair, the M5 does have an absolutely massive boot, which will be great for hiding the body. Or something. The weird thing is, there's so many options for this car, and so many processes going on, that I feel like it's perhaps not as rebellious as the older types of M5. This doesn't feel like a hot rod, like a big engine in a relatively subtle car. So old M5s felt like just a normal saloon. They looked very normal, they just had a lot of performance. This feels like if you want it to be naughty, you have to program things or have it all set up so that it'll go, you know, a bit weird. I want a car that's naturally just a bit more vicious, and this isn't it. It feels like a very top spec 5 Series, a very, very fast 5 Series rather than a distinct M car. I think it's lost a bit of its rebelliousness. Something that this E28 M5, the original M5, has in spades. Now, I hate to go all old school on you and tell you that everything is better with a manual gearbox and no airbags, but come on, this is just glorious. Yes, it had Bilstein damping and a mechanical limited slip diff, but this for me is what an M5 should be. It's a relatively normal looking car elevated by stealth performance. Of course, it's pretty soft and wobbly by today's standards, but it's got that spirit that kind of makes it irresistible. It's got heart and a distinct lack of safety systems.
The new M5 feels like it's just got too much going on. Extra functionality because it exists, not because it's needed. Basically, I want BMW to decide what the best parameters are and give them to me rather than making me choose. It feels like you're doing your own cooking at the restaurant. The E28 is completely the other way. Now, peak M5 for me would probably be the E39 with 400 brake horsepower, a V8 and a manual, but this is the first M5, a car with no costume and a 3-litre straight six making 287 brake horsepower and 251 pounds-feet of torque, more than a Ferrari 328 at the time, in a car that weighs 1,430 kilograms, so more than a ton lighter than the new one.
But amongst the 40-odd years of progress, the M5 has become something else entirely, not to mention £111,000 for the saloon and a couple more grand for the touring. The thing is, I kind of want my M5 to be a bit more of a hot rod, and this car feels just that little bit too much electronic. So let me know in the comments, do you think the spirit of the M5 is alive in this new car or not?